The Lost Guardian. The vast emptiness of the Carina Nebula's outer reaches seemed to swallow sound itself. Here, among the scattered debris of a long-forgotten battle, the research vessel Stellar Seeker moved with deliberate precision. Its sleek, crystalline hull reflected the distant starlight as it approached what appeared to be just another piece of space debris. Chief Archaeologist Vexian Tor stood on the observation deck, all four of his eyes fixed on the object. Unlike the rest of his Quarian species, whose skin typically displayed a calm blue hue, his had turned a vibrant purple with excitement. "Magnify section J7, he commanded, his voice barely above a whisper. The holographic display zoomed in on a section of the derelict vessel. The metallic surface was pitted and scarred, bearing witness to ancient battles, yet the structure remained remarkably intact. 3,000 cycles, Vexian murmured to himself, preserved in the void all this time. Behind him, his assistant Neri approached, her six-fingered hands clutching a data tablet. Her species, the Elorians, were known for their analytical prowess and caution, traits that balanced Vexian's occasional impulsiveness. "Initial scans are complete," she reported. "The vessel matches no known design in Galactic Union archives, but there are similarities to the artifacts found on Proxima b. We believe it's of human origin." Vexian's skin rippled with excitement. Humans, the lost species. The humans were something of a myth in modern galactic society. Historical records spoke of a spacefaring civilization that had briefly joined the stars before disappearing during the cataclysm 2,000 years ago. Their homeworld, Earth, had been lost to history, its coordinates erased from all databases during the Great Data Purge. "Prepare a boarding team," Vexian ordered. "Full archaeological protocols. Nothing is to be disturbed without proper documentation." Neri hesitated. "The Union protocols state that potential weapons of extinct civilizations should be reported before examination." Vexian waved a dismissive hand. "This is a scientific expedition, not a military one. Whatever weapons this ship once carried have been dead for millennia." How wrong he would prove to be. 6 hours later, Vexian led a team of 8 specialists through the airlock connecting their ship to the ancient vessel. Their environmental suits glowed softly, illuminating the dark corridors before them. "Atmosphere reading?" Vexian asked. Trull, their environmental specialist, consulted his scanner. "Trace oxygen. No toxins detected. The ship's hull integrity is remarkable for its age." Vexian nodded. "Maintain suits at level 2 protection. No need for full seals, but keep filters active." They moved deeper into the vessel, documenting everything. The corridors were utilitarian, designed for function rather than aesthetics, a stark contrast to the flowing, organic architecture favored by most Galactic Union species. "These markings," Neri said, pointing to symbols etched along a wall panel. "Some form of human language." Vexian ran his scanner over the text. "Yes, our translators are working on it. Something about authorized personnel only and UNS Dauntless. UNS might be an organization or designation." The team continued through the ship, mapping as they went. They discovered what appeared to be crew quarters, storage facilities, and a large chamber that Vexian identified as a communal eating area. They were social creatures, he noted, sharing meals, perhaps as bonding rituals. 4 hours into their exploration, they'd reached what appeared to be the command center. Unlike the rest of the ship, this room showed signs of battle damage. Consoles were cracked, and a portion of the ceiling had collapsed onto what must have been the captain's station. "Careful," Vexian warned as they entered. "Structural integrity may be compromised here." Neri approached one of the consoles. "These interfaces are primitive by our standards, but the engineering principles are sound. I believe I can restore minimal power using our portable generators." Vexian considered this. Union protocols were clear about activating unknown technology, but the potential knowledge gain was too tempting. "Proceed," he authorized, "but only to information systems, nothing that could affect ship functions." Neri connected their power source to the console, making adjustments to match the ancient technology's requirements. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a low hum, lights began to flicker across the bridge. "It's working," Neri exclaimed. Displays illuminated around them, though most remained dark or showed incomprehensible error messages. One central screen, however, flickered to life, displaying a rotating emblem, a blue planet with a satellite, encircled by olive branches. United Nations Space Command. Trell read aloud as the translator processed the text beneath the emblem. Earth Defense Force. Vexian approached the screen, fascination overcoming caution. A military vessel, then. But why was it here, so far from where we believe Earth was located? As if responding to his question, the screen changed, now showing a sequence of images. Planets burning, massive fleets engaged in battle, and strange insectoid creatures that sent a shiver through every member of the team. "The Scourge Wars," whispered Neri. "These must be historical records from when humans fought alongside other species against the Scourge invasion." The Scourge were well documented in Union archives, a hive mind species that had merely conquered the galaxy before being driven back 2,000 years ago. The cost had been enormous, with entire civilizations lost, including, apparently, humanity. "Look at this," called Trell from another console he'd managed to activate. "Ship schematics." The Dauntless was designated as a Dreadnought-class warship, a weapons platform of significant capacity. Vexian moved to join him, but stopped as a new sound filled the bridge. A deep, resonating tone that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. "What's happening?" he demanded. Neri frantically worked her console. "Unknown. Power levels are rising throughout the ship. Something's activating systems beyond what our generator should be capable of powering." The tone grew louder, and now red lights began to flash in sequence along the corridors. "Emergency protocols initiated," announced a disembodied voice, speaking in the human language, but instantly translated by their devices. "Hostile environment detected. Command authorization required." "Shut it down," Vexian ordered. "Disconnect our power source." Neri tried, but the connections had locked in place. "I can't. The ship is drawing power from somewhere else now." "Activating defense systems," the voice continued calmly. "Crew recovery protocol initiated. Warning: unknown entities detected on bridge." The team froze as panels in the walls slid open, revealing what were unmistakably weapon emplacements. They didn't fire, but their targeting systems tracked the archaeologists' movements. "Nobody move," Vexian commanded, fighting to keep his voice steady. "This is an automated system. It shouldn't have enough power to." He was interrupted as a new doorway opened at the rear of the bridge, one they hadn't noticed before. Beyond it lay a chamber bathed in blue light. Inside were rows of sleek metallic pods, most bearing visible damage. But one, at the center, was intact and humming with energy. "Cryogenic suspension," breathed Trell in disbelief. They weren't just preserving the ship, they were preserving themselves. Before Vexian could respond, the intact pod began to open with a hiss of escaping gases. The team watched in stunned silence as a figure emerged from within. Humanoid, pale-skinned, with short, dark hair. The being wore a form-fitting uniform bearing the same emblem they'd seen on the screen. The human, for it could be nothing else, opened its eyes. They were an intense blue that seemed to pierce through each archaeologist. For a moment, nobody moved. Then the human spoke, its voice hoarse from disuse. "This is Captain Mira Harris of the UNS Dauntless. Identify yourselves and state your intentions." Captain Mira Harris had expected many things when she entered cryosleep. Death, possibly. Perhaps awakening to find the war won. What she had never anticipated was opening her eyes to find a collection of alien species standing on her bridge, looking at her as though they'd seen a ghost. Her military training took over. Despite muscle weakness from suspension, she maintained a commanding posture. The translation matrix implanted in her brain, standard for all UNSC officers, was already processing their languages. "I repeat," she said, more firmly this time. Identify yourselves. One of the aliens stepped forward, tall, four-eyed with purple skin. I am Chief Archaeologist Vexian Tor of the Galactic Union research vessel Stellar Seeker. He hesitated. We discovered your ship adrift and came to investigate. Mira processed this information. Archaeologist, how long have I been in suspension? The aliens exchanged glances that needed no translation. Concern, uncertainty. Captain Harris, Vexian said carefully, according to our records, human ships of this design were last active approximately 2,000 standard cycles ago. The words hit Mira like a physical blow. 2,000 years. It wasn't possible. The suspension pods were rated for 100 years at most. That's not possible, she said aloud. Where is my crew? Vexian gestured toward the cryocamber behind her. We believe you are the only survivor. The other suspension units appear to have failed. Mira turned to look. Dozens of pods, all dark and damaged. 273 souls. Her responsibility, lost to time. She steadied herself against her pod, refusing to show weakness before these strangers. What of Earth? The United Nations? The war? Again, that uncomfortable exchange of glances. A smaller alien with 6 fingers stepped forward. Captain, I am Nerival, xenohistorian. The conflict you refer to, the Scourge War, ended over 1900 cycles ago. The Alliance was victorious, but at great cost. And humanity. Mira pressed, though something in her already knew the answer. Records indicate that Earth was lost during the final stages of the war. Vexian explained gently. Humanity is classified as an extinct species in Union archives. Until today, we believe no living humans remained in the galaxy. Mira closed her eyes, absorbing the impossible truth. Everything she had known was gone. Everyone she had ever loved turned to dust centuries ago. Yet the soldier in her refused to surrender to despair. Eria, she called out. Yes, Captain Harris, responded the ship's eye, startling the alien researchers. All essential systems restored. Weapons at 62% capacity. Engines non-functional. Hull integrity at 74%. You have an artificial intelligence? Vexian asked, his tone a mixture of awe and concern. Mira ignored the question. Eria. Situation report. What happened to the Dauntless? A holographic projection appeared above the bridge's central console, a small blue figure in the form of a human woman dressed in ancient Greek attire. The Dauntless engaged 3 Scourge-High ships in the Battle of Carina Nebula, Eria reported. After sustaining critical damage, you ordered the crew to evacuation pods while you remained to ensure the self-destruct sequence. However, a direct hit to the command center rendered you unconscious. I overrode the self-destruct and initiated emergency cryo protocol for all remaining personnel. Why did my pod survive when others failed? Your pod was connected to the ship's core power reserve, designed to maintain the captain's life support at all costs, Eria explained. When main systems failed, I diverted all remaining power to your suspension. Mira nodded slowly, processing this information. And now these archaeologists have awakened us. Their power connection triggered my reactivation protocols, Eria confirmed. I determined that revival was necessary given the presence of unknown entities aboard. Vexian stepped forward cautiously. Captain Harris, we mean you no harm. We are researchers, not soldiers. Our mission is to preserve knowledge of ancient civilizations. Ancient, Mira repeated, the word bitter on her tongue. So that's what we are now. She studied the aliens before her, their technology, their translator devices, their environmental suits, all spoke of an advanced civilization. A civilization that believed her kind extinct. You said humanity is classified as extinct, she said finally. Yet here I stand. And if I survived, others might have as well. Hope flickered in her chest, faint but undeniable. The Dauntless wasn't the only ship with cryo capabilities. The UNSC had dispatched dozens of vessels to distant sectors before the final push against the Scourge. Operation Scattered Seeds. They'd called it. Insurance for humanity's survival. Captain, Vexian said, interrupting her thoughts. The Galactic Union will want to know of your existence. This discovery changes our understanding of history. Mira's military instincts flared a warning. In her experience, governments rarely responded well to paradigm shifts, and a living human with access to a warship, even a damaged one, would certainly qualify. RIA, she said quietly, initiate Protocol Lazarus. Protocol Lazarus initiated. The AI responded, transmitting activation signal. What are you doing? Demanded Neri, suddenly alarmed. Mira straightened her uniform. The captain once more. I'm making sure I'm not the last human you find. Somewhere in the vast darkness of space, other ships, other survivors, would be receiving her signal. Humanity had been sleeping, not extinct. And now, it was time to wake up. Now, she said to the increasingly uneasy archaeologists, tell me everything about this galactic union of yours. I believe we have much to discuss. Awakening the storm. News traveled quickly through the Galactic Union. Within days of the Stellar Seekers report, the discovery of a living human had reached the highest levels of Union governance. The council chamber on Elysium Station buzzed with tense discussions as representatives from 37 species debated the implications. High Chancellor Zorix, an ancient Tellurian whose crystalline body had witnessed centuries of galactic politics, called the emergency session to order. The situation is unprecedented. The Chancellor's melodic voice resonated through the chamber. A warship from the Scourge War era, operational and under the command of a living human. Our historians believe humanity perished during the cataclysm. Admiral Krell, head of Union Defense, stepped forward. The reptilian commander's scales shifted from green to a wary amber as she addressed the council. This vessel, the Dauntless, was considered advanced even by the standards of its time, she reported. Our archives indicate human warships carried weaponry that could destabilize planetary cores. If this ship's systems are intact, it represents a significant security concern. The human has shown no hostility, countered Representative Thala of the Diplomatic Court, her tentacles weaving emphatic patterns. Chief Archaeologist Vexian reports that Captain Harris has been cooperative, even helpful in explaining human technology. Perhaps, Admiral Krell hissed, but she also activated something called Protocol Lazarus before we could secure the vessel. A transmission of unknown content was sent into deep space. The chamber erupted into concerned murmurs. Chancellor Zorix raised a crystalline hand for silence. What do we know of this protocol? Nothing definitive, the Admiral admitted. The human claims it was a distress signal, but our analysts suspect it could be an activation code for other dormant human vessels. Other vessels. The Chancellor's body pulsed with alarm. You believe there could be more. We cannot discount the possibility. Historical records indicate humans were remarkably resourceful. The word hung in the air. In ancient texts, human resourcefulness was often code for their surprising capacity for warfare, a species that had developed from primitive technology to interstellar weapons in a fraction of the time it had taken other races. What does Captain Harris want? Asked Thala. Admiral Krell's scales darkened. She requests information about Earth and any human colonies that might have survived. She speaks of reconnecting with her people, a people we have no record of for 2 millennia. The Chancellor noted. The coordinates of Earth were purged from all databases during the great data corruption that followed the cataclysm. There is one more concern, Admiral Krell added. Word of this discovery has spread. Not everyone in the galaxy views the return of humanity with academic interest. The Raxus Consortium has already dispatched ships to the sector. This news sent a chill through the chamber. The Consortium, a collection of militaristic factions operating outside Union law, had long sought ancient weapons technology. Chancellor Zorix's crystalline form dimmed slightly as he considered the implications. We cannot allow human military technology to fall into consortium hands. Admiral, assemble a security fleet. Representative Thala, prepare a diplomatic team. We must secure both the human and her vessel before complications arise. Little did they know, complications were already well underway. Captain Mira Harris stood in the Dauntless's weaponry bay, surveying the arsenal that had survived 2,000 years in dormancy. Behind her, Vexian and his team observed with a mixture of scientific curiosity and barely concealed apprehension. Kinetic impact rails, Mira explained, pointing to the massive cannons that lined the hull. Capable of accelerating projectiles to near-relativistic speeds, and these, she moved to a different section, are graviton disruptors. They create localized distortions in space-time. Fascinating, Vexian murmured, recording everything. Your species achieved weaponization of gravitational fields before developing standardized telepathic interfaces, a unique technological evolution. Mira smiled thinly. If there was one thing she'd learned in the days since her awakening, it was that the Galactic Union viewed humans as an anthropological curiosity, a primitive species that had briefly joined the galactic community before vanishing. Their technology was considered crude but effective, an assessment that suited her purposes for now. "AI," she called, "what's the status on defensive systems?" The AI's hologram appeared beside her. Point defense networks at 89% capacity. Shield generators functional but limited to 40% maximum output due to power constraints. And the Lazarus Protocol. Signal confirmed received at 7 coordinates. Response pending. Vexian's skin flickered with concern. "Captain, you still haven't fully explained this protocol." "Insurance," Mira replied simply. The UNSC never put all its eggs in one basket. The alien archaeologist tilted his head, his translator struggling with the idiom. "You mean there are other human vessels? Other survivors?" Before Mira could answer, AI's hologram pulsed urgently. "Captain, multiple vessels approaching. Configuration matches Galactic Union military designs, plus several unidentified signatures." "Show me," Mira ordered. A tactical display materialized in the air before them. A dozen ships approached in formation. Sleek, advanced vessels bearing Union insignia. But beyond them, moving on an intercept course, were 5 more ships of distinctly different design. Angular, predatory. "The lead Union vessel is hailing us," Araya reported. On screen, Mira commanded, smoothing her uniform subconsciously. The display changed to show an alien face, reptilian with amber scales and vertical pupils. "This is Admiral Krell of the Galactic Union Defense Force. The vessel you occupy, and all technological assets within, are hereby placed under Union protection." Mira's jaw tightened. "This is Captain Mira Harris of the United Nations Space Command. The UNS Dauntless remains under Earth authority. We welcome diplomatic exchange, but reject any claim of jurisdiction over this vessel." The Admiral's scales darkened. "Captain Harris, you misunderstand. We are here to protect you. Hostile forces approach with the intent to seize your ship and its technology." As if to punctuate the statement, the tactical display flashed red as the unknown vessels accelerated. "Raxus Consortium warships," Vexian explained quickly. "Pirates and arms dealers operating outside Union law." Mira assessed the situation with the cold clarity of a combat veteran. The Dauntless was operational but far from battle-ready. Even at full capacity, her 2,000-year-old vessel would be outmatched by modern ships. "Admiral," she said, "I appreciate your concern, but the Dauntless will defend itself if necessary." "You cannot possibly." Admiral Krell began, but was interrupted as alarms blared. "Incoming weapons fire," Area announced. Consortium vessels targeting both Union ships and the Dauntless. The decision was made in an instant. "Shields up," Mira ordered. "Bring kinetic batteries online and target the lead Consortium vessel." "Admiral Krell, I suggest we coordinate our defense. The Admiral looked momentarily stunned by the human's calm efficiency, then nodded. Agreed. Transmitting tactical data link. What followed was chaos as the consortium forces attacked with brutal efficiency. 2 Union vessels exploded under concentrated fire, their crystalline hulls shattering into space. The remaining Union ships returned fire, their energy weapons slicing through the void. The Dauntless, despite its age, proved its worth. The shields absorbed the first volley, and the kinetic batteries responded with devastating precision. The lead consortium ship's engines erupted in flames as relativistic projectiles tore through its defenses. "They're boarding," shouted Neri as alarms indicated hull breaches on multiple decks. "Security barriers are failing." Mira turned to Vexian and his team. "Get to the shuttle bay. Araya will guide you to a secure transport." "We cannot leave you alone, To," Vexian protested. "That wasn't a suggestion." Mira cut him off. "Araya, initiate internal defense protocols. Seal all critical sections." As the archaeologists reluctantly retreated, Mira retrieved a weapon from a nearby locker, a compact rifle designed for shipboard combat. It hummed to life in her hands, recognizing her genetic signature. "Captain." Araya's voice held a note of concern. 12 consortium combatants have breached Deck 7. They are advancing toward the command center. "Show me," Mira ordered. The tactical display shifted to interior schematics. Red dots indicated the intruders, armed mercenaries moving with military precision. Union reinforcements estimate arrival in 17 minutes. Araya added. "Too long," Mira muttered. She studied the layout, formulating a strategy. Araya, vent atmosphere in corridor J12. Reroute power to create overloads in sections 25 through 28. Let's thin their numbers. Executing, the AI confirmed. On the display, 4 of the red dots vanished as a section of the ship depressurized. 3 more disappeared when power conduits erupted in targeted areas. 5 remaining, Araya reported. They've adapted tactics and are using environmental suits. Mira nodded grimly. "Seal bulkheads to direct them toward cargo hold B. I'll meet them there." "Captain, probability of successful solo engagement against 5 armed combatants is..." "Save it, Araya," Mira interrupted. "Just make sure our guests reach the shuttle safely." Minutes later, Mira crouched behind a cargo container, weapon ready. The hold was dimly lit, with emergency lighting casting long shadows across the cavernous space. She heard them before she saw them. The hiss of environmental suits, the clank of weapons against armor. 5 figures entered cautiously, weapons raised. Their armor was mismatched but effective, their movements betraying professional military training. Mercenaries, then, not mere pirates. "Spread out," ordered one in a guttural language Mira's translator processed as Krail. "Find the human. Command wants it alive if possible." "It, not her." "Interesting." Mira waited until they separated, then struck. The rifle whined as it discharged, not bullets but concentrated energy that dropped the first mercenary instantly. She rolled to a new position as return fire blasted her previous hiding spot. 2,000 years of technological evolution meant their weapons were more advanced, but the fundamentals of combat hadn't changed. Mira used the cargo hold's labyrinthine layout to her advantage, striking and moving, never remaining in one place long enough to be targeted. A second mercenary fell to a precision shot to his suit's power unit. A third lost his weapon, along with 3 fingers, to Mira's next attack. "Fall back," shouted the leader. "Set the charges and retreat." Mira saw one of the remaining mercenaries place a device on a structural support, a bomb. "ARI, emergency containment in cargo hold B," she shouted, diving behind a reinforced container. Force fields shimmered into existence around the explosive just as it detonated. The blast was contained, but the shockwave still threw Mira against a bulkhead. Pain lanced through her shoulder as she struggled to maintain consciousness. Through blurred vision, she saw the mercenary leader approaching, weapon aimed at her head. So this is the great human warrior, he said mockingly. The last of a dead species. Mira smiled through bloodied lips. Who said anything about last? The hold's main doors slid open with a thunderous clang. Framed in the doorway stood a figure in powered armor, humanoid, heavily armed, and bearing an insignia that made Mira's heart leap. Behind him were more similarly armored soldiers. United Nations Space Command, announced the figure, weapon raised. Drop your weapons. The mercenaries hesitated just long enough to die. Precision fire dropped them where they stood. As darkness threatened to claim her, Mira saw the armored figure approach and kneel beside her. The helmet retracted, revealing a human face, dark-skinned, with lines of age and experience. Commander Alex Reeves, UNS Guardian, he said. Sorry we're late, Captain. Been asleep for a while. Mira laughed despite the pain. You got my wake-up call. 1 of 7, Reeves confirmed. The others are responding as well. Operation Scattered Seeds worked, Captain. Humanity survived. 3 weeks later, the Galactic Union Council convened again, this time with new attendees. Captain Mira Harris, now recovered from her injuries, stood before them alongside Commander Reeves and representatives from 5 other human vessels that had responded to the Lazarus Protocol. Chancellor Zorix addressed them formally. We welcome the representatives of humanity to this chamber. Your return is unexpected, but not unwelcome. Mira stepped forward. On behalf of the United Nations Space Command and humanity, we thank you for this reception. We come seeking peace and reconnection with the galactic community. Yet you arrive in warships, observed Admiral Krell, scales shifting cautiously. We survived because of those warships, Reeves replied evenly, and recent events have proven their necessity. The reference to the consortium attack hung in the air. The incursion had been repelled, but not before demonstrating both the vulnerability and the surprising capabilities of human military technology. What exactly do you seek from the Union? Asked Thala of the diplomatic corps. Mira exchanged glances with her fellow officers before answering. Information, primarily. The location of Earth, if it still exists. Records of any human colonies that might have survived the cataclysm. An uncomfortable silence filled the chamber. Earth's location was lost during the Great Data Corruption, Chancellor Zorix finally admitted. As for colonies, we had no knowledge of any human survivors until now. Then we will find them ourselves, Mira declared. The Lazarus Protocol has awakened 7 ships so far, but there were dozens in Operation Scattered Seeds. Humanity isn't extinct, Chancellor. We've merely been dormant. And now you intend to reclaim your place in the galaxy, asked Admiral Krell. Mira chose her words carefully. We intend to survive, Admiral, just as we always have. Commander Reeves stepped forward. Our ship's databases contain historical records that may fill gaps in your knowledge of the Scourge War. We offer this information freely, as a gesture of goodwill. The offer clearly surprised the Council. Such records would be invaluable to Union historians. In return, Mira continued, we ask for star charts, records of the post-war reorganization, and safe passage through Union space while we search for our lost worlds. Chancellor Zorix's crystalline form pulsed thoughtfully. This council will need to deliberate, but I see no immediate objection. However, I must ask, what of your weapons? The Dauntless alone demonstrated capabilities that concern our security experts. Our weapons kept the Scourge from consuming this galaxy. Reeves responded, they'll remain under our control as insurance against future threats. The implied message was clear. Humanity would not disarm. Admiral Krell bristled visibly, but Representative Thala intervened. Perhaps we might establish a joint commission, she suggested. Humans have much to learn about the modern galaxy, and we have much to learn about human history and technology. Cooperation would benefit both parties. Mira nodded appreciatively. A reasonable proposal. The UNSC is willing to participate in such a commission. As the formal discussions continued, Vexian approached Mira during a recess. The archaeologist seemed both excited and concerned. You never intended to be just an archaeological curiosity, did you? He asked quietly. Mira smiled. Humanity has never settled for being a footnote in someone else's history, Vexian. And these other ships, there are more than 7, aren't there? Operation Scattered Seeds dispatched 43 vessels to different sectors, Mira confirmed, each with a full complement of soldiers in cryosleep, along with civilians, scientists, and enough genetic material to rebuild our population. Vexian's skin rippled with amazement, a contingency plan on an unprecedented scale. Humanity's greatest talent has always been survival, Mira said. The galaxy once thought us extinct. Now they'll learn we were just waiting for the right moment to return. In deep space, beyond Union monitoring, 5 more human vessels had already awakened in response to the Lazarus signal. More would follow. After 2,000 years of silence, humanity's voice would once again be heard among the stars, not as a whisper from the past, but as a declaration for the future. The galaxy had forgotten what humans were capable of when pushed to the edge of extinction. They were about to be reminded.